Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another AW77 StarCraft 2 cast. Today's game is going to be between Liquid Ret, the red Zerg player at the bottom right of Entombed Valley, up against Grubby, quite simply. No team for him, sole sponsorship, or Team Grubby, however you want to put it. He is the green Protoss at the top left. This game is game number 3 of a best of 3 series between them from the losers bracket of WCS Europe. So this game decides who advances and who's eliminated. It's the final call, sudden death, everything on the line for both of these players. And in case you guys are wondering why I'm just suddenly doing Game 3, if you didn't tune into my last match, which was a TVT between Tasia and 4GG from DreamHack. It took me a second there. I'm doing single games now, so I look for top replays, recommended replays, replays of the week, using various sources, and only cast those single games, whether it's in the middle of a best of 5 or best of 3 or best of 7, whatever it is, or even if it's a game on its own. I'm just going to be bringing the top replays rather than have some fluff or just generally okay games. I'd rather have the creme de la creme. So for this specific game, I downloaded the replay back of all of WCS Europe and then consulted TeamLiquid.net, I'm so used to saying Wikipedia, just to verify which games were the best of that tournament. And this particular game was recommended, and I watched some of the live stream of WCS Europe, the finals, this match, all 3 games, so I do know the outcome, and let me just tell you right out, it's epic. I'm not, again, going to ruin it, or tell you the winner, or tell you who gains an advantage at whatever point. All I'm going to say is this is a truly epic game, and will be a pleasure to bring to you guys. Grubby going for a Forge Fast Expand here. Very solid strategy for Protoss in general against Zerg, but especially on this map, as it allows for them to eventually expand their wall off to the 3rd location, just get some gates here, and ferry their units in and out of their base from the natural ramp. A lot of maps will have the main, then down at the natural, and then the 3rd, but we do actually have some links here early on from Ret. I did not notice this, so focused on telling you the future of my channel and all of that, yada yada. I was a little too preoccupied to notice Ret's early spawning pool, and Grubby will be safe against this as he's able to get his cannon up behind a pylon. Very nice crisis control there is going to deny Ret an advantage. He wanted to get something of a Ling run by, possibly into the main, bypassing the cannon entirely, but Grubby was having none of that. Very well done on his part to prevent this. Something like a 10 pool, if I remember correctly. I was just a little too focused on the insignificant details. Ret now going to have a delayed natural. Grubby able to cancel that pylon just on time, so he's ahead of his opponent in terms of his 2nd base, which obviously gives him quite an advantage, as Zerg players generally want that natural up very, very early. 15 hatch, 14 pool, very common timing for the Zerg player to expand. That is known as the Idra build, and has been used ever since the beta. Grubby getting his core on time and desperately trying to save this probe. It's going to be an epic race to the natural expansion of our Netherlands player, and he is now very sad as he just lost his probe. So let us mourn for a moment of silence for that probe. He almost made it. His ashes will forever be remembered here on Entombed Valley. You can see there's even a little mark in the soil, forever commemorating him. Ret going to try to possibly poke in here and see what he can do. There will be a stalker out quite soon from Grubby. He has that Chrono Wing. It will also fill the choke, allowing this cannon to deal with any potential Lings that try to flow in. I'd like to note that these 2 players are first and second in their Netherlands nationals with, was it the Netherlands specifically or Benelux? I think it was Benelux, which is Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Grubby was able to defeat Ret 2-0 in the finals of that tournament as part of WCS, which qualified for them for this event. I'm quite sure I don't remember. It might have been the Netherlands Nationals. I just remember seeing an ESL event that took place featuring players from the Benelux region. I'm so tongue-twisted right now. Around the same time. So if I sound like a complete fool and you're like, oh, it was the Netherlands Nationals, then go on with your regular business, and I will go on with mine, which is casting and telling you guys that there is a Stargate chronoing out Phoenixes behind the mineral line of Grubby's main base. At the same time, he's getting his ground weapons level 1. So this tells us he's not fully committing to his Stargate opener. He is getting upgrades for his ground units, not going to fully go into something crazy like early carriers or another special tactics-ish strategy that you would see out of White Raw, who loves the carrier. My first ever pro-level replay was of a series between White Raw and Stefano, a best of 9, and in one of those games, at least one of those games, our Ukrainian Protoss player went for carrier, so that's a little bit of an OS 77 SC history fact to point out to you guys. Red is just relentless with these lings. He wants to try to pay for them, but now Grubby's thrown up 2 cannons. He's just like, get out, go home, get over it, my friend, because these lings are not coming in my base anytime soon. Red could maybe even... No, I was going to say break down these rocks, but that would be doing Grubby a favor more than anything. He wouldn't be able to run into the main and do too much damage. Even with Metabolic Boost, these 2 cannons would make short work of the lings. Grubby has a nice pylon spread, and only 10 population less than his opponent, which I'm saying only as generally the Zerg player is significantly ahead of the Protoss in terms of supply. Another Phoenix here for Grubby. He does have a fleet of 4 heading out. 5 Phoenixes is always the number, in my opinion, watching pro-level games and high-level games. 5 Phoenixes is ideal for getting a good cycle of Graviton beams and killing a lot of drones or just doing general harassment pressure. Anything less, you run out of energy too quickly. Anything more is an overinvestment. And look at that, beautifully timed there from Grubby. He is going to focus down this queen and kill it. Now going to be able to bully some overlords and possibly some drones, but this one spore crawler has finished Grubby, not taking any hull damage on any of these Phoenixes, very well controlled by him. He's going to have to move the 5th one in here to regroup. It's going to only lose some shield health. There are several more spine crawlers on the way here for Rhett, and now he will be able to inflict some hull damage to Grubby, who is able to snipe the queen, and his Phoenix is all able to evacuate out of there. What kind of tech is our Zerg player going for? He got his Roach Warren and Infestation Pit. He's also been able to snipe one of Grubby's Phoenixes, so he's down to 4, keeping the weakened one micro back, also the one I happen to be following. So my camera not set on the best possible Phoenix. Rhett massing up with a slightly larger Ling force here with speed as well, and 1 carapace shortly about to finish. Grubby is getting his 2 brown weapons, and also slowly destroying these destructible rocks. Not so slowly, as we do have this Immortal here. And another on the way, getting chronoed out. Spire here for Rhett, and his Pathogen Glands for his Infestors. He's going to try to go for a Ling run by here. A lot of sentries. Grubby does not have very nice force. He actually force-fielded his sentries out and loses all of them. Badly executed there for our enigmatic former Warcraft 3 legend. He actually, without those force fields, he would have been in a better position than with those force fields. Rhett, meanwhile, as I said before, getting a Spire, 7 Infestors, Burrow, which could be quite useful for harassing his opponent's mineral line. Grubby on his side of the field going to get a Robotics Bay. He still does have 5 Phoenixes again. He must have produced 1 more to re-reach that total. I was too focused on Grubby's base to actually monitor the progress of his Phoenixes. They were able to amass a total of 12 worker kills approximately. You can never forget the fact that there is a scout to be considered. The Infestors have come out here for Red. Fungals, quite useful against Protoss, especially if they go for a high Zealot count to try to fend off against your Lings. If you're able to fungal them all, they end up in something like they lose all of their shields or something of that sort after the first fungal. It inflicts 30 damage total, so they lose most of their shields. If you're able to chain some fungals together, you can easily kill one huge round of Zealots if your fungals are well placed. If that statement made any sense. We do have our 3 weapons researching and chronoing from Grubby. He's going all out weapons here for his ground units. Needs to build more of a force. What is our units tab showing? 5 Phoenixes, 1 Colossus, 2 Immortals, 2 Sentries, and 72 probes. Very high probe count. They're not too unreasonably high, but Grubby definitely needs to stop probing up and start producing army. Meanwhile, Rhett has a total of 84 drones on his side with 16 more producing. I suppose he's going mass spines or spores or something of that sort. He is at the ramp leading out of the natural into the middle of them. It's so hard to see whether or not this is a ramp with Zerg's mechanic of Creepos ready to say the ramp, the flat land. I don't even see anything. It's all buried. Red is being an OP Zerg and making use of drones to produce extra spine crawlers. He's possibly doing the drone trick to gain over 200 supply, which is when you build a bunch of spines, cancel them, and then you have more supply than 200, but it seems as though he's going to let them all finish, so he's not doing any sort of gimmicky trick like that. He is getting his Greater Spire, 2 Carapace, 1 melee weapons, and 20 Lings, while Grubby goes for Blink, and still got that 3 ground weapons on the way. This pylon going to shortly be destroyed here. Grubby controlling the center watchtower, not for very long. He's getting a mothership, which is always a fun time, and Gravitic Drive, that Warp Prism speed upgrade, very useful for harassment against Zerg players with DTs or High Templar for storm drops. Might be quite difficult for Grubby, however, as he does know his opponent has Spore Crawlers at nearly every base as a result of those Phoenixes. Here's the 5th hatchery on the way here for Rhett. He is 14 supply behind his opponent, but that Greater Spire going to pose quite a challenge for Grubby, as that is often the deciding factor in late game PvZ. Broodlords, how are they controlled? How are they countered? I find it personally, from a Protoss player's point of view, very difficult. Even if you are a high level player, there are truly not really many air counters unless you're to mass Void Rays, at which point they can get Hydralisks in their army, as Void Rays, I would argue, counter Corruptors one-on-one. They're able to defeat them. So Corruptors wouldn't be the option for the Zerg. They'd get Hydras. So I personally find it quite difficult for a Protoss in the late game against Zerg. That's why a lot of builds rely on timing pushes, 2 base 7 gate or 2 base 6 gate 1-1 with Immortals, which I recently featured in a video of mine named StarCraft 2 Close Battle. Check that out. It is awesome. It's got music. But back to my point, late game PvZ, it is very difficult. Protoss players need to execute a good Archon toilet, which I find a little bit cheesy for a player to have to rely on luck and timing to be able to win a game. While the Zerg just pushes in with their Broodlords, if they get blinked under, well, they have a huge ground army to support, so that doesn't really matter. The Stalkers are just sacrificed. And I would argue that the Zerg is at something of an advantage unless his control fades or if he overinvested in Broodlords. He's able to destroy Rhett, the 5th Nexus, without it being cancelled. A little bit of a slip up there from Grubby, who is getting a Dark Shrine charge, shields level 1, and his armor level 1, alas. I was wondering why he was omitting all those upgrades. All those armor upgrades. He's getting Psystorm. He did just have his Templar Archives finish while I ranted on about the current state of the PvZ metagame. And a plethora of upgrades on the way from Grubby. He just morphed in something like 9 Broodlords. He's got 11 total on the field. He's getting his Flyer Carapace level 1. Very intelligent idea to boost the armor of those already quite durable Broodlords. His Flyer attacks level 1. Ground Carapace level 3. Melee attacks level 2 just finishing there. So many levels. So many high numbers. And even, what's the name? It's Gravitic Boosters. I know there's 2 Gravitics. I just forgot what the second word was. That is Observer Speed, so Grubby getting so very many upgrades. He ran in here and tried to poke a little bit. We see the resulting force fields of that. I do apologize for having missed it. Was he able to... He must have been able to destroy his hatchery. I could go back and check that out. That would, however, reveal how long the game is, so I'll just pass it off as a caster's mistake. I do apologize for having missed that. In essence, Grubby was able to force the cancel of this hatchery, or at least destroy it. It might have already been finished, and that is that. Maybe he did it with DTs, or maybe he's trying to do it yet again with DTs. Moving over here to destroy the rocks, but will Rhett see this or not? He is going to see the rocks slowly dying, and may not know it's DTs, however. As Rhett tried to poke in here with some links. Very nice storms around the Nexus there from Grubby, and the Nexus still dies. Very, very close. A lot of kills on this one High Templar. He's got 5, and I believe the other one had many more. Here are the 2 DTs trying to destroy this hatchery. Will they be able to do it? So high damage. 60 damage on those Warp Blades. That's the same as a 2 weapons Immortal would do on armored units. And now the hatchery will be killed for Grubby. He's able to snipe Rhett's hatchery. So these players trading fairly efficiently. We do have 8 more Broodlords, 2 Flyer attacks, and 2 Flyer Carapace on the way for Rhett, and Grubby getting his 3 armor, 2 armor, 2 armor. It has that kind of blue twinge to it. And he's getting 4 photons. It doesn't decrease his supply because Protoss is not as imba as Zerg is, but it'll still give him some defense over here at the 5th, which he's trying so very hard to establish. Rhett moving over to his 6th base, but not getting it up in the corner, rather at the natural location of a player spawning at the bottom left. Shields level 2 on the way. Shields level 3. Wow, that's impressive here from Grubby. His upgrades in general. I said air as I was going to point out the fact that he's getting his air armor level 1 and focusing down 2 Immortals. So he realizes he's up against a lot of Broodlords. He's going to use those Colossi to deal with the Broodwings, and he just saw this as he warped in Charge Watts in the main. Another caster's mistake. I need to slap myself in the face for missing so many of these small little engagements, which are very crucial. The 5th hatchery did just die again. I'm missing every single engagement now, but you get the gist of it. This 5th hatchery died, and Grubby does know what he's up against. A massive number of Broodlords. That is a total of 20 with 7 Corruptors. So he did destroy those 2 Immortals to free up some supply. He needs to warp in a lot of Blink Stalkers, maybe even go for Carriers or Void Rays, try to get a higher Archon count possibly to get a good Vortex off. We'll have to see what he decides to do. A lot of upgrades, like I said before, for him. That air armor it could possibly be exclusively for his mothership, but also potentially for, like I said, Carriers or maybe even Void Rays if he so desires. 1 High Templar going to die without being able to land any storms. Good storm there on the Corruptors. They were going to take a reasonable amount of damage. 3 storms in total. Corruption on landing on all 3 Colossi, 1 of them dying, the other 2 escaping largely unscathed. And Red is slowly going to make his advance over here. He will try to bottle off Grubby and corner him because Grubby knows he cannot engage this directly. We'll have to see what kind of a response he goes for. He's going to have his 3-3-2 and shortly 3-3-3 as he's now getting his 3 armor. Not necessarily shortly, but he is researching it, and with some chronos it will not be too long. Also his 2 air armor. That reminds me of Creator Prime, the Korean Protoss who just gets insane upgrades. He has a reasonable army count, but 3-3-3, and if he has air, 3-3 on those as well. Rhett does have 2-2 on his air units. We'll likely see some 3-3 on the way. Look at that. We're spot on. May have been missing my engagements, but I certainly haven't been missing my upgrades. I've been watching that production tab like a hawk, just like I am now, as there are 4 Stargates here for Grubby. But will he have the time to produce off of them? He has 4 Phoenixes just poking in here, trying to harass the Broodlords a little bit, but the Corruptors are just like, lol, one-shotting these Phoenixes, as there are currently 12 on the field. Rhett morphing even more into Broodlords. He's going to have a total of 23 quite soon. When do you hear that? 23 Broodlords. Huge bank here for Grubby, but his 4th base is getting slowly but surely overrun. He is going to now move in here and try to go for a base trade, but like I said, Imbas are going to get a lot of spine crawlers to fend off and delay his opponent, while Rhett just presses relentlessly with these endless Broodwings coming from the Broodlords. Look, that's the Swarm at its best. Many little Broodlords overrunning Protoss positions. Slowly, but very, very effectively. There died the 5th hatchery of Rhett to a DT who has 20 kills. He's an Executor, which in Protoss society essentially means a leader. So this DT, man, he's leading the charge. He's leading everything. He is Tassadar, Artanis, whatever you want to say, but He may not be in that role for very long, as there is a carrier on the way here from Grubby, also getting his... is this something gravitic? Graviton Catapult. Why does Protoss have to have gravitic, Graviton, Catapult, boosters, thrusters? They need to change their names to something a little bit more diverse. Air weapons level 1 and air armor level 2 just finished. Air weapons level 1 is now researching. But Rhett looking very poised to take this one with such a high broodlord count. Grubby would have to get a very lucky vortex. Not sure why he's attacking these rocks here and not pushing on his opponent's main. He's doing that with some zealots, charge rots to be specific. So Rhett needs to end the game with this force. He needs to either go for the base trade and destroy everything Grubby has, at which point he would be largely in an advantageous state, as he has so many broodlords that even if Grubby put this bank to use and started to reproduce bases, Red could just overrun them with ease. There are a lot of blink stalkers here for Grubby with 3/3/3 upgrades, but they will only last so long to there are more broodlords on the field currently than stalkers to my knowledge, 27 to 16. There are more broodlords than anything besides probes on the map right now. So Grubby's going to have a stroke of luck, some good storms like Squirtle did against MVP's battle cruisers in one game of the GSL, which he wasn't looking very poised to win that, but he pulled it out. So we'll have to see if Grubby's able to get that stroke of luck or just stroke of skill and place a very nice vortex, get some good storms off, and possibly put these carriers to use. He has 2 on the field, but he's going to have to produce more. Maybe free up some population and kill some of these charge lots, or just suicide them over to this hatchery here. Rhett, that is his only base on the map currently. That is his only building. So he'll have to be very, very careful with how he goes about building hatcheries and keeping buildings on the map. If he loses all of his structures, he loses the game. Doesn't matter how many friggin' broodlords he has out on the map. He will have to keep some structures alive. So to my knowledge, that is his only surviving structure, as creep tumors do not count. And if this hatchery over here will shortly die, is he able to reproduce anything? I'm not sure where his other structures are. Like I said, I do not believe creep tumors count. I have no idea what is going on right now besides a complete and total assault of Grubby's base by Rhett. We'll have to see what he is able to do, as our Protoss player now pulling back his main force. Like I said, I have no idea where Rhett's structures are, but he evidently has some, as he's still kicking it, still surviving in this game, and pushing his opponent slowly back. Grubby does not have too many carriers, and his forces are split up. Here are his 2 Colossi moving over now, with a handful of blink stalkers and charge lots. A ragtag force here for Grubby. There are 2 hatcheries building now for Rhett. Slightly exposed and detached from the main army, however. Our Red Zerg on Team Liquid slowly going to corner his opponent. There's a decent storm from Grubby. He's going to need better than that to come out on top in this game. However, what will he be able to do? One carrier getting absolutely swallowed by Fungals. Grubby going for both structures of Rhett, who has enough money and enough drones to remake. But if Grubby's able to snipe this without Rhett's knowing, he could honestly win the game. And he's able to do it. That is GG, ladies and gentlemen. Rhett didn't even have the opportunity to call it. Grubby sniped the base and took the victory. Grubby he left the game as Rhett was defeated. I can confidently affirm that, of course, because I saw it firsthand. But Rhett had no more structures. I don't know exactly what he had in those few minutes when I was confused. Maybe those hatcheries had started producing and I just couldn't see them because they were swallowed up by broodlords visually. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Grubby taking this game. He had a very small chance at coming out on top. His carriers were separated from his main army, so these corruptors could make short work of them. Even though his broodlords were kind of hanging out on their own at the back here, even with a good blink and possibly even a good vortex, Grubby did not have any Archons in the field. He didn't have too much AoE damage available besides some storms from 9 High Templar to devastate his opponent. And even storms from 9 High Templar may not be enough to take out a total of 27 Broodlords. So I hope you enjoyed this crazy game, ladies and gentlemen. I'll catch you guys in a new one quite soon. Austin77 signing out.